Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 814B, and today's date is November 10th, 2015, and the title of this episode is U.S. is Pushing a Nuclear War with Russia and China. Now, before I get started, I just have one announcement. I have uploaded a new interview with David Quinteri. He's from the Money GPS. You can go to the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel and you can view the video there, or you can come over to the x22report.com site. You can scroll down a little bit, look over to your right. You'll see the video there, or you can go to the news site, which is newssentinel.com. That is newssentinel.com. This is a site where there's 263 alternative media news sites streaming into one location. It includes print, it includes video. To see the video, just scroll down on the home page, go to the video section, and find the video there, and you can view it right on that site. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, as more countries look at the TPP or the TPIP, they are realizing that this is not going to be good for their government. It's not going to be good for their country. It's not going to be good for the people of the country. And we are seeing protests around the world saying we do not want this. Canada is saying this is not going to be good for their economy. They're saying that this trade deal will bankrupt Canada's farming industry overnight. And we know the TPP is not good for the American people. This whole thing is being orchestrated for the corporations and the bankers, period, and not for the people whatsoever. And as this has been released, more and more people are looking into this, and they're starting to realize that, this is not going to create jobs. This is not going to help the American people. This is going to help only the corporations and the bankers. Now, the United States, as we know, has a lot of corruption, a lot of cronyism, and there was a test of this here in the U.S. 11 of the 50 U.S. states received failing grades for transparency and accountability, while only 3 earned a score about 70%. Alaska earned a score of 76, which is a C grade, and it looks like not one of the states got higher than a C. Most of the states are in the D range, and a lot of them are in the F. And the State Integrity Investigation assesses the existence, effectiveness, and accessibility of key governance and anti-corruption mechanism through a qualitative and indicator-based research process. And the investigation, as they went through all this, is embarrassing. I mean, there are states that exempt entire branches of their government from open record laws, to states that absolutely refuse to seriously investigate ethics violations. The investigation included assessments of 13 categories within all 50 state governments. Some of the categories are public access to information, political finance, electoral oversight, executive accountability, legislative accountability, judicial accountability, and there's many other different indicators and different requirements they look at. And what we're seeing right now is we are seeing a huge corruption-based society where governments are not transparent and they are not working in the best interests of the people. And if the states are scoring where they did, I can't even imagine where the U.S. government scores. It's most likely an F. Because as we go forward, everything is supposed to be open to the people. This is a people's government. It's supposed to be transparent. People are supposed to know what's going on. This is not supposed to be done in private. The governments were put into place to serve the people. And to serve the people need to know what's going on. But as we see, there's always corruption, there's always cronyism, There's always special favors. And I remember when I was working in a corporation, I'm not going to name the name, and we had to go out and bid for equipment. And we had to go to 3 different vendors or more, but normally we went to 3. And we used to get the price quotes in. And the manager had a special dealing with one vendor. And no matter what quotes we got in, no matter if they were lower or higher, it made no difference. We always went with the same vendor, no matter what. It's not because they had better service. It's not because they had lower prices. It's because there was a special relationship with the manager. And we see this happen in government. And this is where the watchdogs and everything else needs to come into play. But as we know, a lot of the watchdogs are kept out of the documentation because governments don't want them to know what's really going on. Now, with the NSA spying on the American people, a federal judge has ruled against the NSA's controversial collection of Americans' phone records. The program was set to expire by the end of the month, but the ruling is considered a victory. And Judge Richard Leon of the U.S. District Court reiterated his assertion that the NSA's program likely violates the Constitution. I don't think it did violate the Constitution. And he went on to say that the loss of constitutional freedoms for even one day is a significant harm to the people. Now, this sounds fantastic, doesn't it? The U.S. District Court is out there a month before the NSA surveillance expires, and everyone's saying it's a victory. Well, basically, the government just allowed this to happen. They really didn't care. And the reason why is because they have the USA Freedom Act. They have already shifted the spying off the NSA onto the corporations. And then they will pass, which they're in the process of doing, CISA, which will allow them then to take that data from the corporations and give it to the government. And they will not hold the companies liable for that information. And the government can always say, we are not spying on the people. Prove it. We are not spying. The corporations are giving us the information. Now, on the surface, this seems a fantastic victory. But as you can see, at this point in time, it's absolutely meaningless. Yes, they can say that they stopped the government from spying, but they're continually spying. They're not going to stop. They're just shifting things around. Now, out in Ukraine, we see Kiev has redeployed 2 squadrons of combat helicopters to the front line. They're bringing in Grad rocket launchers. They're bringing in the helicopters. They're starting to see tanks arrive once again. I mean, they're completely violating the Minsk II ceasefire once again. But as we know, the Minsk II ceasefire expires at the end of this year. And right now, Kiev is not looking to extend it at any point in time. But we'll have to wait and see. Maybe they will. Maybe they'll say they'll extend it for 6 months. But we know the U.S. and other nations are in Ukraine right now, training the National Guard, training the armed forces, and they're continually bringing in lethal and non-lethal weapons during this Minsk II ceasefire agreement, which says no foreign government can have troops inside of Ukraine. And we'll have to wait to see what happens with Ukraine. Now, the U.S. is going to be sending thousands of troops, attack helicopters, artillery, to Europe to deter Russia. And they're going to have these troops on a rotational basis, and they're going to bring more and more military assets to this area. Now, if we go back in time, we saw this occurring many years ago, where they were already bringing in the fleet, the U.S. fleet, to the Pacific to encircle China, setting up bases, and they were doing this to contain China. Now we see them doing the same thing in Europe, where they're bringing in the missile shield, tanks, artillery, troops, setting up rapid reaction forces, working with NATO because of this Russian aggression. Now, all this is being ginned up to make everyone believe and everyone think that we'll be going to war with Russia. Well, we are going to be going to war with Russia, but Russia and China are not going to start this. This is the U.S. creating the instance of war. They want everyone here to believe, and throughout Europe, that Russia is the cause, China is the cause, North Korea is the cause. But in fact, it is the U.S. This is what every dying empire does at the end. They start a war. And this is what we're seeing right now. And this war is not going to be like any war we've seen before. This is going to be a war that will go nuclear. Now, Putin realizes this. China realizes this. Putin is out there saying that Russia is working on weapons to counter the U.S. so-called anti-missile shield. He's saying that they're going to have nuclear force capability to allow their missiles to get through the shield. Now, they already have this capability, and they're going to develop more weapons. And he's saying that the U.S. is trying to conceal its real objective behind the anti-missile shield across Europe. Of course, the U.S. is saying we're developing this for North Korea, we're developing this for Iran, and what this missile shield was really, why this was really put in place, it wasn't for Iran, it wasn't for North Korea, it was put into place for Russia, to stop Russia, to stop China, and maybe North Korea, if they really do have a nuclear weapon that could blast off. But the main two are China and Russia, and this is the real reason. And Putin is out there saying, we know the real reason. We know what's going on here. You are provoking and pushing a nuclear war. This is the end game of the United States. Now, we understand that they're going to continually push and provoke until a country does something. Now, if a country does not do something, the U.S. will take care of it. But in the meantime, we see the fight in Syria is continuing. We see the U.S. is not going after the Islamic State. We see the coalition airstrikes are hitting oil and gas separation plants. They're hitting pump stations. They're taking out the infrastructure of Syria continuously. And we have a professor at the Lebanese International University, Jamal Wakim, and he said the following. So far, the U.S. raids that came after the direct Russian involvement in Syria have only targeted civilians, infrastructure plants, electricity plants, and other infrastructure, and they haven't targeted any terrorist groups. This is what we've been seeing. Now, there is a video on X22Report.com. You can go to the Sentinel Alerts, where we see an Islamic State caravan with all the Toyota trucks. They're all going down the road. And what is following them is a U.S. attack Apache helicopter. It is not firing on the convoy whatsoever. And the reason for this is because they have strict instructions not to destroy the proxy army of the United States government, coalition forces, and Israel. And this is what we are seeing at this point. Now, Lavrov is out there, and he's saying that we need a list of the terror groups. He says there's a need to agree on a list of the terrorist organizations so that no one has any doubts or hesitations about which groups we are going after. But the United States will not provide or work with Russia to name the groups, because mostly al-Nusra, al-Qaeda, the Islamic State, the Free Syrian Army, the Free Democratic Army, it's all part of the same system. They just made it a gigantic quagmire of all these different terrorist groups, but it's all the same thing. Actually, the Free Syrian Army doesn't even really exist. They just have this on paper to make it look good. Really, the Islamic State is their army. Now, the U.S. is out there, and they're saying it's going to take years to rid Iraq and Syria of the terrorist forces. And air power is not going to work alone. We're going to have ground troops. And 50 boots on the ground is not going to be enough. And we knew this was coming. There are going to be a lot more soldiers from the U.S. going into Syria. And it's going to be in the tens of thousands. The U.S. has moved A-10 jets from Kuwait and takers from Qatar to Turkey's Incirlik Air Base to help fight not the Islamic State, but the Syrian and Russian forces. Their goal is always the same, to go after Assad and remove him. And remember, the United States was not invited into Syria. The United States invaded a sovereign country. We have just kicked off World War III by invading Syria. The United States was not invited. And there are troops in there working with the Islamic State, Al-Qaeda, al-Nusra, to go after Assad. Now, Russia is going to resume air service with Egypt as soon as Cairo imposes international level security measures at the airport. Now, what's very interesting about the Russian down jet is that the United States and UK, they came out and said that they have evidence that they knew it was a bomb from the Islamic State, and we found out the information came from Israel, so most likely Israel planted the bomb. And then they gave if there is a bomb, then they gave this intelligence, if it's true or not, to the US and the UK. And the United States and UK had no information whatsoever. But they continually tell us that they're keeping track of the Islamic State, that we need the NSA, that we need all of this information. So how do they know that there was a bomb on the plane? Are they really trying to tell us that a member of the Islamic State got so smart over the past few months that they secretly slipped into the Egyptian security custom and they sneaked a bomb inside a Russian Metrojet passenger plane? And they were just able to do this? Doesn't the NSA snoop on virtually every major and serious activity across the globe? Haven't we spent $52 billion on this? Doesn't the NSA have the authorization to snoop on 193 countries, including Egypt? I mean, in the days following the crash of the Russian Metrojet, why in the world wasn't the U.S. worried about the Islamic State hitting maybe a U.S. jet? Why weren't they telling everyone, this is a cause for concern? Instead, they were wondering how the bombing might hurt Putin and potentially help the United States and hopefully get Russia out of Syria. I mean, 224 innocent people lost their lives, and the United States officials aren't worrying about that. They're not concerned about sending Putin their condolences, as Putin did after 9/11. They're only worried about Syria and how this would affect Russia inside Syria. This is how you know either this was a complete inside job or they were like, wow, what a coincidence. This just happened at the proper time and the plane went down. This is perfect. We'll just call it terror, and hopefully the people of Russia will say, oh my God, we don't want this to happen. This all happened because we started to bomb inside of Syria. And right now, what we're seeing is that the authorities of Russia, the Russian Government Commission, and the Egyptian Investigation Commission, they don't have any reliable proof that it was an act of terror right now. I mean, they're keeping this as a possibility, but right now there is no connection whatsoever. But we'll have to wait and see. Because the United States, they're 99.9% certain that it was a bomb. At least that's what Israel tells us. And when I talk about countries like Israel, France, Canada, I'm not talking about the people, I'm talking about the governments. I mean, I live in the United States. When I'm talking about the United States and the government. It's not the people. It's the governments that have gone off the wire here and are doing things in their best interest and not in the people's best interests. Now, we understand the U.S. fired off the Trident missile, and they waited for a certain part of the day to do this. They wanted everyone to notice the missile was launched. They wanted Russia and China to notice this. The reason why they didn't announce this ahead of time is because they really didn't want Russian or Chinese subs to, move towards where the launch point was going to be, and they didn't want them to see the actual launch. And they picked the time of day where everyone could see this launch. Now, the United States was flexing their muscle. They were showing China and Russia, you need to do what we say or else. So to give you an idea of what the Navy just showed off, each nuclear-armed submarine can carry 24 Trident II missiles. And each missile can carry multiple nuclear warheads. Each warhead can have a yield of up to 475 kilotons and are capable of acquiring an independent target. These missiles have a range of 4,000 nautical miles and can reach speeds of over 18,000 miles per hour. And this was a message to these countries. Start doing what we say, or there will be nuclear war. Now, the U.S. Navy has launched a second nuclear missile over Los Angeles. The second test of the Trident II missile took place Monday afternoon, and this is coming out of the LA Times. So they are really sending the message that there will be nuclear war if you two countries don't start doing what we say and following what we want you to do. Now the question is China and Russia going to listen? Most likely not. Because they realize no matter what they do, the system is coming down. The dollar is going to be done. And basically what's going to happen here is as this collapse accelerates, the United States is going to get more and more aggressive towards these countries. And they're showing them that we're moving towards a nuclear war. Listen, everyone. Thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.